Hi, the following is a conversation with my friend Anne Frank. Anne Frank is a psychospiritual coach and transformative coach. For those who don't know what psychospirituality is, it's more so a combination of traditional psychology and spiritual elements. So if you enjoy this content, please check out my YouTube page and my Facebook page. I had a lot of fun talking to Anne. It was really a pleasure, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Hi, Anne. It's great to see
Hi,
you.
Randy. You as well.
So I guess for the viewers who don't know about my channel or what you do, I'm a manifestation coach. I do energy healing and I do life transformation. So I love open-minded people. I love learning about energy modalities, holistic health, and psychospiritual concepts and themes, anything regarding consciousness, whether that's scientific or spiritual, whatever flows or resonates through your core. Like I love just hearing about that. And I love hearing people's stories and their own journeys and their spiritual growth, and maybe even traumas if they're willing to talk into that. And I find it very special when people are talking about their psychedelic experiences or mystical experiences. Those are always, that always warms my heart to hear those stories and just that connection that all of us have, that we're all one, we're all connected. And yeah, I'll let you share.
Yeah, so my name is Anne Frank. I started my business as a transformational coach, specializing in psychospiritual self-transformation, specializing also in life recovery and self-discovery. And so my business is Psychedelic Integration-OC. And I work with psychedelic integration, people that are working with psychedelics, but much more so of the foundational basis of the psychospiritual integration, which is much more about integrating life experiences, of everyday life experiences, of the traumas, the highs, the lows, and really understanding that and peeling back the layers of, the things and the programs that we've created in our lives, or the programs that we've had pushed upon us at a very early age. And I see psychedelics as an opportunity to accelerate the process, as a tool, to gain more information of our challenges, our obstacles and blocks, and our greatest potential. So, yeah, and it's amazing, the process and the results when you're dealing with somebody that's actually ready to do the work of, they're sick and tired of being sick and tired and want to step into a different way to look at it and move through the pain and suffering into the greatest joy. So.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing for that too. And yeah, I like what you said, they're sick and tired of feeling sick and tired. So it's this feedback loop of feeling bad about feeling bad, or feeling bad about thinking about negative feelings. And it's really powerful when people use plant medicine or psychedelics. I have no experience myself on plant medicine. I have used psychedelics a few years ago, and it's really helped me with my journey and my I guess perspective on life. I was wondering if you could share something about yourself with psychedelics, or the community work, or even how your clients perceive things after their integration or educational process.
Yeah, well, psychedelics have a certain stigma in our culture, still, even though, some of that is attributed to the 60s and what happened back then, and our culture just wasn't ready for the advancement of our psyche, to go in the direction of realizing that we are not just this body. We are so much more than this physical being that we've been programmed to believe. And the culture of the 60s, were such a polarized extreme of the conservative, clamp on controlling the masses versus opening up this Pandora's box and actually having this experience of, you know, divinity or that veil being lifted, you know, and how do you reconcile those polarities, you know? Didn't work quite, you know, as it should have back then. So it was delayed 30, 40, 50 years, you know, and I think we can thank Rick Boblin, who is the founder of MAPS, you know, who 30 years ago saw the potential of psychedelics for mental health purposes, you know, to heal the body from the inside out, you know, utilizing the mind and the spiritual approach, you know, and then, you know, taking that torch, you know, and holding that for 30 years to actually progress the movement to where we are at today, you know, and so, you know, my experience with psychedelics, you know, I was very conservative growing up. I, you know, believed in the war on drugs in the 80s. You know, so I pretty much had nothing to do with any of the substances, you know, until my adult life, you know, and then I dabbled in it a little bit, you know, maybe 20 years ago, but it didn't have a good result for me. So I pretty much swore everything off in regards to that, you know, due to religious issues. And, you know, about 4 years ago, I had read, you know, prior to that about LSD, about it opening up opportunity for psychospiritual awareness, you know, and so that kind of piqued my interest, but then I forgot about it for a while, you know, and then about 4 years ago, you know, I was really at a plateau in my spiritual development, thought that I'd reached the peak of, you know, what I can experience on this earth plane. And, you know, I had a friend that kind of, you know, got into these conversations about ayahuasca and plant medicines. And we, you know, explored a little bit more as far as information, you know, shared videos and stuff. And I was more open to looking at what that was about, you know, and so that kind of, you know, and still I'm thinking, well, I can't do this here. I have to go to a foreign country, you know, and it's all about intention. You know, when we create an intention in our mind and are serious about it, and the intention is benevolent, doors start opening up. So with very little effort, you know, all of a sudden I was connected to somebody that was connected to somebody that was, you know, and then I had many opportunities to be able to experience these medicines, you know, where I didn't have to go someplace else. And yet I was still held in a beautiful container, you know, which allowed for me to actually experience what this was about. And it blew my mind, you know, which psychedelics do, in a way that it made me realize that we are not what we think we are. We're not who we think we are. You know, I've always had a spiritual awareness, you know, and I've been on a spiritual path my whole life, you know, because nothing really made sense to me. And what I was told, I knew that there was so much more. But when I, you know, went into the psychedelic space, then it just confirmed everything. It brought that piece of the puzzle and said, yeah, that's the truth. This is who you are. No, it's a knowing. It's not, you know, believing. It's not, you know, an idea or a concept. It's an intrinsic knowing within my being that I am so much more.
Like a visceral feeling. You're saying like it's more of a knowing, but it's not like an intellectual thing. It's more like, I know I'm not the body. I know there's something more to this thing, whether it's consciousness or. Yeah, it's like holistic thoughts, feeling, words, and actions, you know, mental, spiritual, emotional, physical. It's all of it that's coming together in this wholeness that, you know, we've never experienced before. And when we know this from the core of our being, that brings us to a different level of understanding and opportunity to look at the rest of the world and to step into it in a different way. Awesome. I was wondering, what was your spiritual path like? What was your background?
Yes, I was raised as a Roman Catholic. You know, went through all of that, very good mother, you know, to that path. And, you know, I remember very early on that it really didn't make sense to me because of the dogmas that we were taught, you know, that Roman Catholics were the only ones that were going to heaven. And even though there was other Christian denominations that they weren't following that path, they would not be allowed, to go to the heaven that we were going to, and then what about all the people that weren't even Christian, and what about all of the other faiths and religions, and to me that just didn't quite sit well. It's like, why would a loving God do that? And then again, there was always a lot of programming around guilt and shame and, we are born sinners. And I just knew that not to be true. How can somebody that is supposed to be so loving and divine, put that burden upon us as human beings to try to overcome? And so I questioned that really early in life. And then I had a lot of, experiences and traumas and, challenges in my early life that I really wanted to make sense of, because I knew that I was bigger than those. But, and so I seeked out a lot of self-help, ideas and books and teachers. And that really got me on, really escalating and trying to uncover. I was divorced, at 23, and, pretty much told that I was going to hell because of this. And I thought, no, God is not like that. God knows that I have a good heart. So I went out to explore different paths of spirituality, and left the Catholic Church behind in seeking the things that I resonated with. The understandings and the teachings that were more resonant with who I was. And, I found things, and along the way, things keep evolving and changing, and, we learn more and we're more expansive. And so things look different. It was really, the epitome of getting to that point where there was nothing else for me to learn, I didn't think, before I hit that psychedelic space.
Right.
So everything is perfect divine timing. And it was like, wow, I was ready. That was where I was at, and then all of a sudden the whole thing opened up.
Awesome. So I'm hearing a lot of the universe opens up when you're actually putting your attention out there, and also it's like there's this resonance feeling of, well, I don't believe God will damn these people, or I don't think there's this hell and there's this equality thing. I mean, everyone has their own subjective reality and their own beliefs, but that also didn't sit well with me too. That dogma of you're going to go to hell if you do this, if you have sex before marriage, or if you're doing drugs, like all these things and the conditioning, it becomes like a morality, like good and bad thing, which I never really, I always had a problem, not a problem, it's more like, it's just, I don't know, it seems very, in my opinion, it felt very controlling. It didn't feel right. As you said, there's some sort of resonance towards those issues and conditionings, and it kind of hardwires people's neurology and their own personalities. And I do see a lot of those parallels, especially coming back in 2020. There's this area of chaos and dogmas, stigmas, a very polarized society right now. And I was wondering, if you could elaborate on that and your own journey towards that.
Yeah, I agree. It was for me, and it's always been, when the student is ready, the teacher appears, and so psychedelics was a tool for me. It gave me a lot more data to work with for, really understanding what we're about, and then even after that, I found a guru, which was seeking. He found me, and it took me to an even higher level than the psychedelic. It was just like, this is never ending. This is infinite, And as we continue to work through these things, I'm just amazed at the possibilities, the miracles that are happening. But to your point, when we are growing up in this culture that is very controlled, we're given a snapshot of the fact that, we have to look at the parameters of in this very small, organized understanding of this life that we're living. And anything that's beyond that little square is not right. It's not okay. It's judged. We're wrong.
You're damned. You're a sinner.
Yes. And it's like, this is taking the life of our people away from them, because, I understand that this life is just an experience. We are just a conscious experience of life unfolding.
Right.
So on the spectrum, there's no right or wrong. It's a matter of your choice, what you're experiencing, the result of what you're experiencing, the next choice, you continue to navigate through this life, and it's beautiful and it's ugly and it's painful and it's joyful, that this is the experience that we came for, but when you're programmed to look at it through this little pinhole and feel shame and guilt about any freedom that you want, to have beyond the restrictions, that you've been led to believe are okay, it creates so much, it creates just such bondage and such a heavy load that, unless you're so inscripted in that program and you're so supported in that program, that people are dying left and right. That we cannot survive within that program because it goes against the inherent resonance of who we really are as free beings, as free souls, as free spirits that came here for the human experience. And I think to what you're saying, that's what we're experiencing now in the world, is this total chaos because we've outgrown the system. We can no longer fit into this system, into this paradigm. And the energies are changing dramatically right this time, shifting into a higher paradigm, more openness, more understanding, more love, more freedom, more joy. But we have, in order to do that, we have to work through all of the lower frequencies, all of that lower programming. It's not going to just go away. Individually, each one of us have to work through the understanding of what it's about in order to be free from it.
Right.
Difficult work. So, yeah.
So it really does start with our own journey and our own beliefs, assumptions, because we're all conditioned in this world. We could be born into an embryo, and even that could be day zero, and there could be a lot of conditioning from our parents, society, media, entertainment, loved ones, lovers, social media now, and it's that task of like, how do we uncondition, how do we unlearn, and how do we pack it into growth and transformation? Because I believe that it's, like you said, it's the souls are on its journey. If we believe that we're souls in living a human experience, that this body is just more of a vehicle, then it's more so, it's just like, what can you learn in this? And it becomes playful almost, like Earth is our school, it's our playground, and there's less of that tension or that serious energy. Then we could just play, have fun, and learn and grow, and know that this is literally a game. You don't have to, quote unquote, die. And it's just this sense of fear of death, fear that the body is going to die. Yes, maybe, yeah, the fear, the body can die, but then what about your soul? Like, what about that consciousness that's always there? And I think that's a huge thing of fear of ridicule, fear of being criticized, fear of death. Like, those fears are like ingrained a lot. There's a combination of the COVID with the riots, with your identity, and it all stems from fear of something, like fear of losing something. But in truth, and in universal truth, is that we're all one. And it's not meant to say, I'm not trying to say it as like a woo-woo thing, but it's really like that connection to spirit is a lot of us are missing to that, like that infinite spirit, love, creation, whatever. And yeah, I think that's what we see in America, or the whole world. A lot. There's a lot of people doing the work like us. There's a lot of people in their journey, and everyone has their own obstacles and ups and downs, and we're all in this together. But it's really interesting time to just see that growth in the collective, and like you said, like allowing it and seeing how it flourishes.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, you included the woo-woo thing, but when you look at any of the religions, any of the belief systems, they're all based in faith, and if I can have faith in that woo-woo, I can also have faith in my woo-woo, which makes more sense and which resonates with me and supports who I really am, instead of just having a belief system based on what somebody else has told me.
Right.
And then buying into that, because that actually leads back to our core wound, which is our abandonment of ourself. and created our first, crossways where we weren't aligned with who we knew we really were. We believed what somebody else's truth was above our own, of our own knowing.
Mm-hmm.
And that created this core wound, which everybody's dealing with, which is what we're trying to come back full circle to,
right.
And to come back into alignment with our core truth of who we really are. So the woo-woo of believing that I am more than what I have been told that I am, and connecting with that higher self, and also understanding that as a soul in this body, I chose to come here. I chose to have these experiences for my greater understanding, for my greater expansion and growth as a soul in this body. So, I like when you say, when you come down here and we get this conditioning and these programs and stuff, and it seems very difficult. It seems very hard to understand that we would have to go through these paths to get back to who we really are in a cyclic of, experience on this earth, because it's so painful, and because we're so out of sync and so chaotic. But, I also have the understanding that at a certain point, we chose this. We even wrote this before we came. We chose our parents,
Right.
And then we're just kind of the actors in the play, allowing it to unfold, able to make deviations along the way if we choose. But I think at the end of the day, our script is always going to end up with a happy ending.
Mm.
And when you believe that and that, you're able to step into that divine flow and stop the resistance. Because if you know that it's always going to have a happy ending, you don't have to fight anymore. You can just accept it because you understand that the winds of change, the dynamic of change is constant. And the human mind knows so little compared to the universal mind.
Universal mind, yeah.
Of understanding what really is going on in this circumstance where I'm feeling and attached and suffering what just happened. But if I can circumvent that and go up to that higher perspective of not knowing, but knowing that I am held, that I am loved, that I am supported and carried through this, then I can surrender to it, get into the flow, and watch the beautiful flower unfold. And that is heaven on earth. Yeah. So we're dealing with different, parallel realities right now. The hell on earth created and fed through the fear of society and the cultural programming. And we're dealing with the universal, paradigm of love, based on love, and heaven on earth, because when you can really step into that, you see the beauty.
Yeah. It's
back to you because it's coming from within. And then it's a cycle. It's cyclical, just like the other paradigm is cyclical. It keeps you in that space because that's the energy that you're putting out. It's coming back, you're putting out, coming back.
A feedback loop, on and on.
Exactly.
It really is that too. It's like if we could reduce that, or just find that awareness of awareness where it becomes, you could just find that source code or something that will break those patterns or break the roots. And psychedelics is an amazing method for that, a tool, just like anything else. And it's really, I feel like you nailed it right on the head, where there's conditioning that we have, but when we're in alignment and we connect to higher self or infinite self, that thing that's all of us really, but we are so conditioned that we forget, like we separate, like, oh, I'm separate from you, or I'm this body, like those identifications and attachments become very real in a sense. And then you're basically filtering yourself because you believe that you're the body, you believe you're this identity. And it's really a process. A lot of times, especially this year, it's been a humbling process. Like, wow, I really don't know anything. It's just my mind has this experience. I'm getting downloads. so to speak, for higher self. But then there's always another level, but there's always growth. Like there's always something that consciousness wants you to know. And it's really like if you're still living and breathing, then there's some work to be done, like whatever work that means. And I mean work as in spiritual work or being your authentic self, that kind of work. And that begs me to ask those questions of how can I grow further? You know, am I doing something right or wrong? But then I realized there's no such thing as right or wrong in those aspects. And it's like it's these limiting parameters that that are given to us, we kind of picked up, but it's really like expressing our true selves and being alignments or in alignments. And the path I think is eternal. Like the soul continues to grow, not just in this lifetime, but in multiple lifetimes. And I like how you said there is a happy ending. I feel like the ending, there's no such thing in ending. In my view, it's more like it's growth. And so in that way, yeah, it is happy if that's the belief and condition that we're instilling us. And it's really ultimately it's learning. Like we could be uncomfortable, but then that itself is more for a catalyst in growth and change and learning, instead of seeing it as oh, this is terrible, I can't get anything out of it. Like there's always a way to reframe it. And I guess the theme, this month has been empowerment. Like how do we empower ourselves? How do we empower other people? And it's really interesting, as you said, like the social media part too, you feel it. You kind of, like I feel it viscerally if you go online. It's just such a myriad of beliefs, thoughts, assumptions, and energy. And it's like, okay, I accept it. There's a lot of cleansing we have to do. And what's next? You know, it's like, what can we do? It's like, we can't be too hard on ourselves. And then any judgment is a self-judgment. So that's also work on ourselves too. And yeah, it's really interesting. But I really see a bright future of abundance, joy, and growth. I mean, there's always going to be one aspect, like you said, it's just one aspect. Like the negative realities, these parallel realities are just one of infinite, which is in a sense nothing. So it's like, where do we focus our energy? Where do we focus our attention to?
Yeah, and I like you brought in the social media aspect, you know, because everybody's so connected but so polarized. You know, and that is a snapshot of really where we're at in this world. You know, the pain and suffering that we're going through as a humanity, and the fact that we're going through the birth canal of, you know, this new paradigm, and that it's showing us so clearly the great divide and the polarities, the, you know, the worst of the worst, the best of the best, or however you want to judge it, but it's all judgment. And the way I see it, judgment is the one thing, that final thing that keeps us from our liberation. You know, and I've experienced it myself over and over again through social media, you know, because I have an opinion about different things that are going on as well. But when I attach to that opinion and I feel the pain of, you know, the other person's opinion, I realize that I'm still playing the game. I'm bringing this onto myself. I'm still using my judgment to create that polarity as well. And that's keeping me in this matrix, you know, but it's showing me that I still have work to do. And I embrace that. It's like, okay, time to step away from social media and do my work on myself, because it doesn't feel good when you're in that space with somebody that you love that triggers you. You know, that trigger is showing you that there's energy that's still in your body, in your being, that needs to come up for release and healing. You know, because when you can step above it and understand that there is no right or wrong. You know, everybody has an experience. You know, I equate it to a rose. You know, that we are a process of life unfolding, just like a rose who starts off as a bud, you know, and grows and matures and has this beautiful essence when it's done in, you know, in a process that's supporting it. You know, I mean, a lot of the commercial roses don't smell. They don't have an aroma. They've been pushed through the process. And I think the most important thing we need to understand is that we cannot rush our process of unfoldment. We have to sit in the moment and feel what this feels like to be in this space. And if we don't like it, then we need to change how we're thinking about it or looking at it, or expand our consciousness and awareness around what's really going on to accept it, and move through it. So we're keeping the essence of our truth, our humanity, our realness. And in doing that, we're able to step into a higher perspective where we can understand why somebody would have the opinion that's totally polar to mine.
Right.
Because we've been there. We've that pain and suffering. We've been attached to that idea. But, because at that point, that's what our mind could comprehend. And then something happened to us which cracked that shell open. And then we understood it from a different perspective. But at the same time, we're encompassing everything. So instead of judgment, it's about dropping back into the heart with compassion for why they feel and think the way they do. Not judgment, because the judgment will just keep us battling each other. And it's in that way that we can all flower like the rose into who we really are, our greatest potential, instead of dying on the vine, because to the belief.
That's a very powerful analogy. Right. The rose and the vine. I really like that one. Yeah. It's a time of reflection too, and for a lot of people, they are at home. They still have to work from their home, and it could be even more stressful, and more triggers can come up, distractions can come up, and it's almost like the mental and emotional part too. It's chess. It's like, okay, what do I do with this energy? And even the mental health aspect of depression, anxiety, high suicide rates. People diagnosed with autism, because I used to work with kids diagnosed with autism, and I'd imagine just how difficult it is for the families and them, because we are social animals as well too. It's like we need that social interaction. We need some form of structure, and we're changing and adapting to this time in history. But are there any further solutions that may improve people's lives with mental health, or just feeling stuck, or any of these things?
Yeah, it is interesting as we go through this pandemic, as we start to see the social structures changing, we're basically imploding upon ourselves, the educational system, the medical system, our financial system, our economic system, we're like, wow, what the heck is going on? And I see this as something that's happening for us, because this is long overdue. Our educational system, to have the paradigm pushed upon us that we need to get a college degree in order to be worth anything. Mm-hmm. And the money that people spend, and they're indebted for the rest of their lives for these student loans to corporations that don't give a crap. And I mean, the whole system has been broken, for the capital gain.
Right.
And, and as far as the educational system, children belonging to school districts, and supported based on their economic standing in society, means that those that are in lower economic areas have no support to be able to, move through the system in a way that has programs to give them opportunities to utilize their creative genius. And we all have creative genius. We're all creators. But unless you are given the opportunity, or have found a mentor to help you, or recognize what your gifts are, just think of all of the incredible resources that we have not tapped into in this society and in this world, and where we could be if those issues were addressed. And I think that's where we're finally at. Is hopefully opening up the playing field, and giving those opportunities to people that didn't have them before. And I think that has allowed as well is this vast knowledge or array of information where anything is there if you want it bad enough to be able to learn, and to be able to create ourselves outside of the system, stepping out of the matrix, not buying into that bullshit anymore.
Right.
And then really just watching how things change, because you're not really drinking the Kool-Aid, but you're supporting the other dynamic to step forward. But, as individuals, we have to do it on our own. We have to do it for ourselves and be the example of that change in the world and step out of that victimization. But at the same time, there's so many people that aren't able to do that because that's been their life story. That's all they know. The traumas, PTSDs of children need to be addressed, because those are the things, and we all have traumas from our childhood. Those are the things that hold us back. And if we can address those, when the children are young, and give them support and love and care and help them heal from them at a much earlier age, we're not going to see, the suicide, the PTSD, all of the traumas and suffering that we do now in the adults that have kept the system intact.
Right.
Yeah.
And it goes back to the system too. It's like, yes, it is flawed in many ways. And I used to be very angry about the system and like what you expressed on the conditioning of people and not addressing their own inner childs and not dealing with their traumas. And I realized there's a lot of a struggle with that, because maybe not everyone has mentors or coaches and communities that really bring your awareness, but it always starts out with a desire to heal and to find okay, maybe this isn't working out. If I do this for 30 years, I'm literally killing myself. Maybe it's not a literal killing yourself, but it's really you're feeding your energy like the Matrix, where it's just not working out, and there's just so much disharmony. And I do believe we're coming into this restructuring of new systems. And, I really am grateful for the Being True to You community for just being themselves and having contributions in their own fields of psychospiritual work, but just any coach or, Reiki masters, energy healers, to provide that light and space to people's traumas and giving that energy to spark growth, innovation, and light, because it's much needed in this time of shadow and the unconscious collective. Making that conscious is what Carl Jung would say, is making the unconscious conscious, so then we could all accelerate and grow into a great civilization. I mean, I have so much optimism with people doing their own thing and creating systematic change, because I think it's super needed. And it's only if you felt those traumas and pains yourself where you could really take a step back and make that conscious choice. Am I going to be part of the system, or am I going to try to change and make my own system or evolve in some way? And I think that has to be a mindset in one way, because the change and the growth has to always come from within. And like you said, it's making that leap of faith, but also that connection to universe that you always are guided and supported.
Yeah, I agree. Organizations like Being True to You, and different coaches, which I think everybody should have a coach, give us the understanding, or allow us to embrace the understanding that there's nothing wrong with us. There's really nothing wrong with us. And we've been led to believe our whole lives that we're broken, that we're wrong, that we're not good enough, they're not worthy, in this state of competition, judgment, and what the psychospiritual coaching and understandings do is it peels all that back. It says, no, that's a pack of lies. It's not that way. And it allows us to come back to center and really, pull in our authenticity and allow that to, flow and open up, and for the first time in our lives, really trust ourselves instead of, all of the external world to show us our truth, because everybody's on their own personal journey. Like you said, whether we have the desire to understand earlier in life or whether we have the desire to understand more of our awareness later in life. Has that been scripted? Did we write that story before we came here to go through these experiences? So it is really about holding space for those that may not be where we are right now with this understanding, because that is their journey. That's what they chose to experience. That's what they wanted to get the most out of it, and just letting them know that it's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. Love it. If you're going to live that story, and choose to accept it and love it, because it's only through the heart, that you can get through to the other side. Because the heart is about compassion, acceptance, and about understanding, and not about judgment, And so, the coaching and being true to you, is showing us that is the example of how it can work for us in a better way to heal, to become, what we came here for, to be able to accept ourselves and love ourselves, which, once we can do that, then we have that capacity for other people. But until then, you're right, as we are judging other people, it's just a mirror of how we feel about ourselves. So.
Yeah, I love that. And you're going back to being in the heart too, because the heart itself, like you look at chakras in Ayurveda, where it's an energy center, but it's also, there's a lot of truth to it. There's heart-centered expression, heart-centered communication. It's a vortex too. There's that heart-mind coherence, there's heart maps, and even just that intuition from the heart is so powerful. There's electromagnetism from the heart. And it's like, why aren't we taught this? I mean, Joe Dispenza is doing a lot of work with this and creating this energy. But if you're meditating from the heart first, especially like if you're starting out the day, just being in your heart, expanding your heart mind, your heart chakra, expanding it to other people, your loved ones, the people that are suffering, people in the world, then it's energy itself. And we are ultimately all energy. We're consciousness in this body, but if we're expanding that energy, that heart center, I really believe and feel that life just becomes better. And you definitely can hold that space for people that are going through that journey of spirituality or just going through a hard time. And when you're healing yourself, you could help someone else. So you resolve that energy field, and maybe because you had that experience in your imprinting, someone else can gain healing that way, and it goes well with energy healers and coaches, because it's like they've been on the path too, and we're not alone. We've always got help on the things, but it's hard for people to ask for help, and then that's, I guess, part of the message for people in this timing. It's, you can always ask for help. Like there's a lot of options, and you want to follow your resonance and find what's true to you and what works for you. And everyone's different.
Yeah. The very first lesson when I work with clients is we are energy beings. And if they can accept that as, truth and start playing with that, you see the dynamic changing very quickly, because as you were talking about, when you drop into your heart, and instead of, it's the polarity of fear and love, which one are you going to choose in this moment? If you're in a fear state or a judgment state, but you drop into your heart and you think about things to appreciate or things that you're grateful for, that changes your vibration. It changes that dynamic right now. Because in that space, there's no room to fear. There's no room to judge, because you're in the space of appreciation. And the energy of appreciation, what does that do? It appreciates more. And it more and more and more.
A feedback loop in
Exactly.
the good way.
And what that does is allows us to come back into our own power, to pull it in, create our core power, and start strengthening that to build resilience in all things. And when my clients start really taking note of that and understanding that we're energy beings and what we put out comes back, that we don't want to be putting shit out anymore. We don't want to be putting out fear and judgment anymore, because that's the feedback loop. But when they try going into the appreciation, the gratitude, and they see that coming back and circling back, and it comes back quicker and quicker and quicker because we're raising our vibe, and the whole manifestation process, is quickening now. You see results so quickly, and as they fall back into the other polarity, it hurts even more. It's more of a crunch because they felt the other, and they're like, oh, okay, and then this is the choice. Okay, you've got a choice. You've got a crossroads, left or right, fear or love, and it's a process of, again, practice. This is life unfolding. You can only become a master through your practice, and masters only continue to be masters through the practice. So once you start retraining and reprogramming your mind to live from that appreciation perspective, then it's an automatic thing. It's like that unconscious picks up that new program, and you're living from that space. And so, yeah, it's about going back into the heart and then catching, watching, being aware of it when you're not playing in that space. But that's where it feels the best. That's where you feel like you're home. And it may take some of us 20 years to get there, but it's all a play. It's all the dynamic of the play. I like how you said that. This is a play. We came here to enjoy. That is our ultimate mission. That's our ultimate purpose, is to embody what we already are, which is the spark of God, divinity. And there's no hell in divinity. It's love, joy, purpose, creation, expansion, beingness, fulfillment. And when you carry that energy, other people feel it.
I love that. How do you have fun? What do you like to do to have fun? How do you play? How does Anne Frank play?
Yeah, I'm really simple. My best friend always used to say, yeah, you're simple, but you're complex. I guess I have to agree with that, because I'm a very simple person where I don't need, a lot of bells and whistles. I like peace. I like tranquility. And so I've created that type of environment for myself. I have a dog, that's like a king in my life, that relationship, pure, I love how it makes me feel, because that's the purity of what that God essence feels like. So getting out into nature, smelling the roses, really delving into the self-care, which is really about, understanding who I am and aligning myself with that energy that's in the outer world. So I'm not resisting, I'm not coming across things that aren't, that aren't feeling good. And when I do, it's like, oh, it's showing me something about myself, but it's of no interest, so it just falls away. So, I just love nature. I like getting out, I like connecting with friends, and having these types of conversations. We're really open and sharing, and raising the vibe. I like gardening, flowers, I love to read, and it's just the simple things in life. I've had all of the rest of it. I've had, the higher, cultural, vacations, this, that, but nothing makes me happier than just being in my space, in this frequency and sanctuary that I live with, the people in my space that continue to vibrate in that area, and then helping people to understand who and what they really are. You know, watching them open their eyes for sometimes the first time of the truth of who they are and their opportunity and potential is amazing. It's fun. It's like, wow, that's what I came here for. You know, I'm a play spirit. I'm a play spirit, aspect of God in physical form that came here to help people find themselves. You know, and I felt that for a long, long time. And I didn't know what that even meant, but I knew that's who I was. And so now I've seen how it's unfolded in my life to be able to step into that role and to assist people in opening up, you know, their wider awareness and perspective, and seeing, you know, who they really are, and embracing that, celebrating that, moving into the joy.
I love that. As you see that, the birds are chirping in your area. So I love that. It's very, very pure, and just knowing yourself, being yourself, and helping people with that path and realization. I really think that's amazing. I really admire your path, your journey, your work. And as we come to a close, I was wondering if you might have a final message for this session.
Absolutely. You know, as I kind of talked to a few minutes earlier, I think the biggest lesson here is for us to really step into appreciation. You know, is to create this awareness around our choice, that we have power and that we can take our power back at any time. But when we appreciate anything about anybody, about life in general, about ourselves, we really have to go into deep self-appreciation to learn to love ourselves, so we can heal those things, the pain and suffering of the programs in our life, so we have that capacity to be that person in the outer world, to love other people. And the only way to get there is through self-appreciation. And if it's just the little things of, I appreciate myself because I stopped to smell the rose today. That is self-care. And unless we can really turn inward, which is what this whole COVID thing is all about, I believe. It's a great pause in our society for us to turn inward and do this work. Because we've never gotten the opportunity like this, where our culture is shut down, you know, our economics is shut down. Use it to your benefit. Dive into your self-care. Ask yourself the tough questions. You know, am I happy doing the stuff that I'm doing? And if I'm not, you know, accept that. And then start asking more questions. But taking care of yourself, give yourself time to breathe, give yourself time to sleep, to heal, and stop chasing that outer distraction. Because we'll kill ourselves that way. That's the definite way to stress and cancer in the body. You know, is following the distractions out there. No, the answers are always inward, and you get there through the heart. You'll get through the appreciation and learning to love yourself. And when we can all do that as individuals, we will see the collective change into a whole different world, in the new paradigm of the new earth. And I believe that we're there. We're in space right now. You know, I believe I'm living it. And I want to invite everybody else to join me here.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much. I love the self-love, the self-respect, the self-care. I think those are very powerful messages. And I really appreciate this. This was a blessing. This was super fun. And I hope we could do this more. And thank you so much, Anne. This is awesome.
Thank you, Randy. I'm just mirroring back to you who you are. So I appreciate you and all the work that you're doing. And yeah, I would love to join you again sometime. But you know, please carry on. You know, you are a diamond. You know, you crazy diamond. Carry on.
You as well. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much. You guys are the future.